Professor, I suppose the first place to start is to congratulate you on 20 years, on this 20-year anniversary of APRM. Let's talk about your legacy. Let's talk about the last 8 years, because you are now coming to the end of your term.
Well, I can say that I came to the APRM accidentally because nobody wanted to do the job. The institution had already almost collapsed. The Continental office had collapsed, and the search committee of ministers were trying to offer people jobs, and people would be offered, and nobody wanted to take it because they thought it's a graveyard for your career. So I came here, I could say accidentally. I was in the Foreign Service, South African Foreign Service at that time, and South Africans were chairing the search committee, and then they persuaded government that no, let's submit Eddy's name, and then that's how I came into here. And it was a difficult journey in the sense that, you know, at the beginning you had to get the institution back, and you had to get the resources. It was quite tough, and you had to get the buy-in, you have to bring countries back, and so on. And really what saved us, I could say a few things. One is that we had a very good chairperson at that time, in President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was the chairperson of and it was him who took a decision that let's get a CO and then let's get this thing going. And so I had a lot of support from Kenya, even financial in terms of resources, institutional, and so on. And also the African Union. The African Union put in, they send staff to come and assist us, and they send advisors. When I arrived, I had advisors. I was also supported by the Economic Commission for Africa. And there was a revitalization committee of ministers, Economic Commission for Africa, the African Union, and so on. So the support was there, and really we set out to do what we eventually were able to achieve, to really get it out of that situation into where it is today.
So I suppose one of the things that you had to do in your tenure, particularly in the first years, was one, build credibility, and obviously relevance, right? So how relevant has the organization been to the greater African community? And I'd imagine, before you even answer, that it's been great, because when it was initially formed, I think there were 5 or 6 nations. You're just 20 shy of the entire continent at the moment.
What is unique about APRM is when you join, you create a national structure. A national structure, they differ from country to country, so we coordinate all of that from the Continental office. And it is through your national structure that you do a lot of work. So, and the work we do, most of it doesn't end up in the media and all of that. So like, for example, now, I use this example before because it's quite current. The Minister of Sierra Leone has been here, and he's talking about what they've been doing now to try to set up institutions, and quite a number of measures that came out of the reviews that we conducted. So the key thing with APRM is that when we do a review, working with your national structures, out of that review, there will be recommendations. Work fast on those recommendations, integrate them in your national plans, integrate them in your budget, and then have a dynamic APRM that helps you to drive the APRM agenda. And that's when you start seeing the benefits of APRM.
So let's talk about your mandate as the APRM. What is your mandate?
No, our mandate really is to promote, well, the formulation is that to promote good governance across the African continent, but we do that more through an M&E model. An M&E model in the sense that countries commit themselves to regional commitments, like African Union, SADC, and whatever commitments. They commit themselves at the international level to a number of obligations, and also at the national level they will have constitutions. So our work as the APRM is to try to see how are you performing with respect to these commitments that you have already done. How are you performing in the area of economic governance, in the area of socioeconomic development, like your poverty programs, youth, women, and so on? How are you performing in terms of corporate governance? How do you have a regulatory environment, and so on? How's the private sector, and so on and so on? Also, we now also introduce another area of state resilience out of COVID. We saw how countries reacted. We realized that most African countries, almost across the continent, none of them were really prepared for this, despite the fact that at the international level there's already a regime that encourages countries to develop, to prepare themselves for external shocks. So the response was in good. So we started this whole program now on state resilience, and quite a number of countries are inviting us and then testing themselves now against the tool that we have developed for them to say, how ready are you for unexpected external shocks? We just did one now for Mozambique and so on and so on. So that's what we do. We promote governance, but the way we do it through an MNE. We test you and evaluate you against the commitments that you as a country have taken. But we use a different methodology. You self-evaluate, and then we send him to validate what your own assessment, and we work with your national structure. So it's a bottom-up process. You have to own it. But what we do is that the reports that we generate are not even discussed by ministers. When you have a meeting of ministers, ministers just check, is my president ready? Because it's only the peers, the presidents themselves, who respond to each other and who give feedback to each other. And we've got an independent body of eminent persons. We've got 10 of them, 2 from the 5 regions of Africa. They are the ones who are mandated by the presidents to evaluate and to review them. So our work as the Continental Secretariat is really to coordinate this machinery, the eminent persons, member states, and then member states, of course, convening all of these meetings, but also the work of the national structures.
So let's get practical here. Now, democracy is one of those things that you look at. You also look at governance. So let's get to 2 practical examples. South African governance, state capture, trillions of rand that were looted. What role or intervention did you play in that, if at all? And then we look at a situation like Zimbabwe, where the democracy in that country has been questioned. You're funded by the AU. You indicated the AU is one of those bodies that watched over the elections, and amongst many that gave a damning report. What did the APRM fit into those 2 scenarios?
No, the way we work, let's say in the case of South Africa, if we did a review of South Africa, and I will advise you to look at it, our reviews are very robust, very frank, very direct. But because of the methodology we use, maybe people think our reviews are very, very thorough. So you'll find the issues that you are raising on South Africa, they will be in the reviews. And the issue of corruption is not unique to South Africa. It's across the continent. We find it in most of the reviews. It will always come up, a big issue. I remember the late President Eddy of Chad, when we presented the report, and he said, oh, this thing of corruption. And then he set up measures to try to deal with it. Even in Sierra Leone, there was a big issue on corruption. They are taking measures. It was in our... So if you were to do a review process in South Africa now, definitely it will highlight those issues. And it will then say to you, these are the interventions that we have to do. And then it will then we work with the South Africans, because then they have to develop a program of action out of those recommendations to say, this is how you have to intervene. And then President Ramaphosa now will have to go to his colleagues at the level of peers and present what is called the progress report. So progress report, this is your report on how you are performing on the recommendations that have been put before you. And Zimbabwe, they have joined us as a member. So we will send a team, and when we send a team, if there are challenges, and there are challenges, those challenges will come out in the report. So our reports are you could say, are written. Member states that who joined APRM, they joined APRM knowing very well that they are going to subject themselves to a very rigorous and an independent process.
Now, from what you're saying, you offer a report that in many ways confirms what these nations already know. Is there a political willingness to adhere or adapt to or adopt the recommendations from your reports?
The way it works is that after a country does a self-assessment, I don't process a self-assessment report that has not been adopted by the cabinet of that country. And also, we don't consider a self-assessment report that has not been validated. So you do a self-assessment, you process it through stakeholders. You must convene meetings, and there must be a record that you convene meetings, national consultation, your parliament was involved, different structures were involved, and then it goes to cabinet adopts it. And then once it gets to us, then I check whether all those things have been done. And if I say, well, they've been done, I indicate to the panel. But in between where there is interaction, I indicate to the panel, then the panel will start deploying the panel. Now they're sending out a continental mission to validate your own self-assessment. And when they are there, the panel conducts its work independently, produces the report. And sometimes there will be the on and offs between the country and the Continental Secretariat on the report, on certain facts, on certain issues, and so on. In the 8 years I've been here, no single country has ever refused to accept the report. And some of the reports are hard-hitting, I can tell you. I know presidents, when they are there privately, they talk to you, they say, my brother, this is tough. It's quite frank, and so on. And the issue of political will. Political will, yes, but you need two other things. You need institutions, but also there are always fiscal requirements to implement some of these things, because they are quite huge, because they happen at the state level. If you have to create new institutions, you require resources. If you have to come up with new legislation, if you have to come up with other, maybe new policies, if you have to do certain things for the youth, let's say the issue of National Youth Service. President Museveni, when the issue of National Youth Service came up, he said, we want to do it, but we are financially not ready. So you do get into those situations. So political will, yes, but you find instances where there is political will, but you find that the country is struggling financially, and it may not have certain institutions in place. You may go into a situation where a country commits to certain things, then there are elections, and then there's a new government that comes in. And then when I go and see the new government, they say, we're not ready. Come back, and so on and so on. So it's an ongoing process of engagement. And when you push governance and advance and promote governance on the African continent through a multilateral mechanism, it's a game of patience, because you're working with sovereign states, and there are certain things, if you do, they will not want to receive you. So you must make sure that you work with them in a manner that they keep their door open to you to keep on coming and engaging them, and so on. That's how it works.
How gratifying has your work been over the last 8 years? And I suppose this would speak to some of the successes that you've enjoyed, but we'd also like to talk about those challenges that you've had to endure.
What I appreciate is the work that we do. You know, to go to a country that has just experienced a coup, and when you get there, the leaders in that country want to receive you, or a country that has just also experienced a coup, and then you get a letter from them to say, my brother, please come, let's work together. Or another one will say, so these general...
But isn't that almost like them trying to sanitize the situation?
No, because your job is not public. So remember, you are not a mediation mechanism, you are not a validation mechanism in the sense that is this coup, and because it's the African Union, the Peace and Security, that will say, no, we subject you to sanctions and so on. And then the countries will then commit themselves to a timetable. So some of them reach out to you with that timetable and say, we need you, like I had a meeting recently, we need you to come and work us in this time. Because some of this timetable, it is essentially a governance issue, preparing a country now for elections, and they may discover that their electoral laws or electoral system, there are serious flaws that lead to some problems. There may be some constitutional gaps. So they call you, they say, come and work with us. You send teams, and then we work with you. You know, so for me, this is really gratifying when you see that even countries in that situation, they want to work with you because they see the value of APRM. One country comes out of elections, they commit themselves. We want to reform our public service. We don't have a strong and a good spot. Why they think APRM, you get a letter. They've just come out of an election. Then you undertake a mission, you meet with them. They say, look, we want to reform our public. We want you to. So these are the things that we're doing. For me, I see all these tangible changes, and I hear presidents talk frankly about what they want to do. They are under pressure. They feeling the weight of responsibility. So for me, it's really gratifying. It's gratifying to see that there's this, you could say, I can't say universal because universal is the universe, but there's this general embrace of the work that we are doing on the continent, and countries are very frank. Presidents speak to you, and then they see the little contribution that you are doing. But as I said to you, promoting and advancing or promoting governance on the African continent through a multilateral mechanism, it's a game of patience.